Greetings. Back with another one. Got another article by from Game Rant by Mr. Josh Colts. I believe it was published about a day ago, and we're going to be talking about Ghost of Yotei. Now, the initial launch of Ghost of Yotei, from the reception that I gave it, I was blown away. The first game was a masterpiece. I mean, Sucker Punch did a phenomenal job with the first one, Ghost of Tsushima, and upon the launch of the trailer of Ghost of Yotei, I mean, it sparked some controversy, I'm sure, because of the female protagonist, and that's what this article is about. And I'm gonna go through it in a second, but based on the historical accuracy of the game of the first one that took place in feudal Japan. Like I said, I'm not too deep on the history of everything that happened during the feudal days of Japan and stuff like that. During the Mongol invasion of Tsushima and stuff like that. But with this second launch of the Ghost of Yotei, I don't know how historically accurate that they can be because of the female protagonist. But like I said, I'm rambling. I just wanted to go through this article with you guys, and the headline, it says why Ghost of Yotei's Atsu could be more complex protagonist than Tsushima's Jin. And the summary is Ghost of Yotei focuses on the concept of ghosts rather than one character like Jin Sakai. And Atsu, a female Ronin in 1603, faces societal complexities Jin did not in feudal Japan. Well, I mean, Jin did face some complexities. I mean, it was a damn invasion. I mean, I mean, just I mean, because I mean, it has nothing to do with biological sex in terms, but he faced a lot of complexities. I mean, just the feud that he had with this. I mean, I don't want to give it away for people who didn't play it, but it was the whole thing that was going on between his uncle and the fact that he had to, kind of violate, the Bushido code and all that stuff. Being less of a samurai and kind of being more, into a shinobi and stuff like that. All of the stuff that he had to do, he kind of had to break, violate the code of the Bushido and the way of the samurai in order to survive and stuff like that. So it was a lot of complex stuff that he went through. I mean, just I don't like it, but like I said, moving on. I digress. But Atsu's quest for vengeance adds moral ambiguity and narrative complexity, surpassing Jin's journey. Okay, moving on. While a direct sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, starring its protagonist Jin Sakai, might have been an ideal direction for the series to go in some respects, it is nevertheless headed the way of a full-blown franchise dedicated to the concept of the ghost rather than one character. Yeah, so the ghost, I mean, is going to be a mantle, which is fine. Ghost of Yotei, leading the charge as the first game to lay down the road. Jin Sakai has undoubtedly proven to be a noteworthy protagonist in many ways, driven by a past filled with regret and a future fueled by a strong desire to protect his loved ones at all costs, even if it means sacrificing his morals to do so. See, saying he had to, violate the code of the Bushido, and that's what his uncle was constantly telling him. Like, no, somebody don't do that. Somebody don't do that. So, but he had to do it in order to survive. So that's what you discovered the plan in the first game, which is it was beautiful. Jin's past combined with his presence and future to work together to make him a very complex and layered protagonist, which is largely why leaving him behind in exchange for the ghost as a concept has been so difficult. Jin's story in Ghost of Tsushima shows the struggle between honoring tradition and doing what is necessary, in addition to other complex elements such as his precarious relationship with his uncle, Lord Shimura. Jin's story didn't necessarily push every boundary of character development. I don't know how, but Ghost of Yotei's Atsu already looks primed to just that, possibly making her an even more complex protagonist than her predecessor. Like I said, this is all opinion piece and stuff like that. So, but yeah, like I mean, just the fact that she's female, I mean, it can't be just that. I mean, like me personally, I think it's gonna be more based on historical accuracies and stuff like that, and how far will you go away from that time in terms of what was going on. The most obvious difference between Tsushima's Jin and Yotai's Atsu is that the former is a male protagonist, whereas the latter is a female protagonist. This immediately sets Atsu apart from Jin in increasing her complexity. But just because she's a female, it doesn't make her more complex. But moving on, as it offers an entire different perspective on the rigid gender roles in feudal Japan. In 1603, when Yotai is set, women in samurai roles known as onamush certainly existed, but they were more than expected than norm. Well, which is fine. I mean, we all have our roles. When it comes to war, it was men, mostly fighting the wars and stuff like that, which is fine. But more often than not, women in feudal Japan filled defensive roles, tasked with protecting their homes and families while men went to war. Samurai women were also expected to prioritize domestic responsibilities like managing their households, raising their children, and being a reliable support system for their husbands. In other words, Japanese society during the Edo period was significantly patriarchal, with women at the time expected to do more submissive and modest, making marital prowess increasingly less appropriate for them. Like I said, I mean that's just the world we live in today now. I mean, like, a lot of that, domestic stuff, a lot of it's being frowned upon these days. I mean, like I said, y'all know. I mean, we see it all the time and stuff like that, and just, I mean, with the way that creatively, the way that a lot of games and novels and motion pictures and television series, it just seems that, like, what they call the whole girl boss thing. It's just that in order for women to be seen as strong, at least in modern times, they have to be just like a man. I mean, like I said, women and men are strong, but just in different ways. I mean, she doesn't have to do everything a does just to appear to be strong. They're strong in their own way. And like I said, the first one was phenomenal. I'm willing to give this one a chance. And like I said, when I saw the trailer, I didn't flip because of female protagonists. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief and stuff like that. But when you talk about historical accuracies, I just want to know what they're going to go with. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, that's just how a lot of things are written now. Like I said, I still think the game is going to be a masterpiece. I don't I don't think they're going to go the Last of Us 2 route necessarily and completely drop things off a cliff. But we'll see. Like I said, only time will tell. Until we won't know until the game launches. But continue. In light of this, things may automatically be complicated for Atsu more than they were for Jin, depending on who she crosses paths with. It's possible players might witness the struggle she goes through as a female warrior in a male-dominated society. Here's the thing: we saw that in the first game. There were two particular female characters that Jin encountered and befriend and helped, with the side quests. You can do side quests in the game, stuff like that, and you saw their struggle, and they held their own. I forget their names, but they were strong female characters in their own way. One was an archer, and the other one she helped Jen and stuff like that. So I mean, this is it's nothing new in terms of creative because you had him in there. I mean, just the fact that just because that the female is going to be a protagonist now, it doesn't take anything away from the female characters that were in the first game. So I mean, moving on, and it could even directly affect gameplay. I don't see how, but I mean, like I said, this is a video game fantasy. You can have female characters do anything that you want them to do, but like I said, this is all opinion. Since Ghost of Yotei has been confirmed to prioritize player choice more than Tsushima did, perhaps players will be required to find creative ways to infiltrate relationships and gain the respect and loyalty of men who might not initially take seriously. Um, and like I said, it wasn't really, like I said, in the first game, it wasn't really male female. The female characters in the first game won't look down upon or won't take it seriously because they were women. I mean, like I said, the Mongols they butchered everybody. They didn't care who you were. Like, for example, one of the female characters, like I said, I hate to spoil it, but hey, spoiler alert. But one of the female characters, like I said, I forget their names, but one of the female characters, her brother was brutally, you know, dispatched in front of Jin, and then, like I said, I mean, it was horrible. But like I said, they really got deep and gritty with it, the way they, showcased it and stuff like that. But and it was also a who we thought was a villain that was a female character. She was pretty cool, so like that. So you had it's not like you didn't have female characters in the first game at all. It was just from Jin's perspective. Uh, on top of being a female protagonist, Atsu is a Ronin, which could also lead to increased complexity in the character. Unlike Jin, who is the last surviving member of his clan, Sakai, and therefore an important figure of Tsushima Island. Being a Ronin means she is likely an outcast, stripped of the social structure and honor tied to the samurai code. They were Ronin in the first game; they were men, so they were outcasts too. Like I said, see, this is what I'm afraid of. The whole, I just feel like I just, like I said, I hope they don't do this. I hope they don't focus too much on just because she's female. I hope that this is not a female-led game, as opposed to a game that so happens to have a female lead, which I'm fine. I prefer them to focus more on the story that just so happens to have a female lead, as opposed to a female-led game. That's what I hope. Like I said, you had Ronin in the first game. You fought them. I say they were probably the toughest enemies because of their defense. I mean, just when that, for example, when you stand off with them, they would do like fakes and stuff like that, which were very tricky. Like no other enemy type in the game was doing that other than the Ronin. They were like probably the most skilled and more challenging opponents when it comes to just the art of the blade. They were very, very tricky to go against. Besides the Bruce and stuff like that, but the Ronin, like I said, Jin, he encountered the Ronin. He knew a Ronin, and one of them, ended up betraying him and stuff like that. So you had Ronin in the game, but like I said, it just the focus on just the fact of biological sex and stuff like that. That's what I'm afraid of, and I think a lot of people are afraid of it. They just don't want. They don't want to. The dreaded word, they don't want to. They don't want to wokeify it. I know. So I digress. Where I'm in. Oh no. Yeah, stripped from social structure and honor the tide of the samurai code. While Jin was isolated for a time in Tsushima, Atsu isolated is likely to be far more prominent, meaning she may have to work much harder in forging relationships with others than Jin ever did. I don't agree with that. I really don't. Like I said, it depends on how Sucker Punch writes it. Something else that may add another layer of complexity to Atsu's character in Yotei is her quest for what Sucker Punch says is one of underdog vengeance. Obviously, her role as a Ronin in feudal Japan automatically makes her an underdog. Like I said, it depends on how Sucker Punch writes it, but it is her quest for vengeance that may ultimately complicate things for her even more. Most vengeance stories are enveloped in moral ambiguity, as they are often depicted as morally gray acts of violence that are often not worth it at the end. In the end, that sounds like Last of Us 2 all the way. Revenge is a full game. That sounds just like Last of Us 2 right there. Although Jin's decisions become the go. Also, can't read. Although Jin's decision to become the Ghost of Tsushima was considered morally gray for him, it was still more a noble purpose. Atsu's quest for vengeance, on the other hand, may be anything but noble. Like I said, it depends on how they write it. If they paint her more as an anti-hero, maybe. But if she turns out just to be another noble character like Jin, then her being a woman is not going to have anything to do with it. It just depends on how Sucker Punch writes it. Let me finish this and I'll finish up. Asu's journey in Ghost of Yotei looks primed and challenged the narrative foundations laid by Jin in Tsushima, expanding the scope of what a ghost can be. While Jin's story in Tsushima revolved around the conflict between honor and necessity, Atsu's narrative introduces layers of complexity tied to her identity as both a woman and a Ronin, facing societal expectations, potential isolation, and the moral ambiguity of vengeance. This shift doesn't just lay the groundwork for a protagonist who faces external battles, but also whose internal struggles may outshine her predecessors in the end. Okay, so now, sound like a broken record. Like I said, it solely depends on how Sucker Punch writes it. Because like I said, you had female characters in the first game, and they were not looked down upon because they were females. They were pretty much, you know, at the mercy of the Mongols, you know, getting their butts kicked just like the men. I mean, the first game starts off kind of. I mean, it starts like a war, and dudes are just dropping like flies, and fortunately Jin survived, and then we start his journey. But when I played, and I think I can speak for a lot of people who played the first game. The women that Jin befriends and goes on this journey with, we didn't look at them differently because they were women. So like I said, this is fantasy. I mean, like I said, it's going to be based on true events that happened feudal Japan, but it all depends on how Sucker Punch writes it. And like I said, I hope they don't focus on the fact that she's a woman, and I hope that they don't write side characters downing her because she's a female in feudal Japan. Like I said, I sound like a broken record. It's solely going to depend on how Sucker Punch writes it. Are they gonna write it in a very like I said, I hate to use the word, but are they gonna wokeify it, or are they just gonna just say, hey man, this is just a game that so happens has a female lead? You know, only time will tell. I hope they write it that way. Like I said, like kind of like how Ripley was in the Alien movies, how Sarah Connor was in Terminator, and how Lara Croft is in the Tomb Raider games. Like, we didn't give a damn that they were females. Those, like, from like I said, I think I speak for a lot of people. Those were not female led movies. They were movies that just had female leads in them. We didn't, like I said, nobody focused on the fact that they were women. So yeah, I mean, I just hope that Sucker Punch does the smart thing in terms of a business decision, because like I said, we are now in the era of just rebellion. A lot of people are getting tired of this stuff. When you just, like I said, people are just tired of the agendas. And it's okay to have, like I said, when it comes from a creative standpoint, everybody wants to push a narrative and stuff like that, which is fine, but not in a way where it's victimizing yourself and constantly just putting yourself down because of a demographic or sex or ethnicity or nationality, stuff like that. Like, people just don't want that. Like I said, we want to relate to the character because, not because of what they are, but what they're going through. We want to go along this journey with these characters. So like I said, it solely depends on how Sucker Punch is going to write it, and we hope that they don't go the woke route and just say, hey man, this is just a game that so happen has have a female lead, and the fact that she's female has nothing to do with it. I mean, they're probably gonna have those moments, like, cause like I said, I mean, obviously, hundreds, centuries ago, you know, women back in those days were particularly vulnerable, and it still exists today. Women, but like I said, when you're going along the beaten path and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, they're gonna probably have those moments where she's vulnerable, but in society today, men are attacked more on the street, even until today, when it comes to just random violence on the street, like I said. So I mean, like I said, I just hope, like I said, I hope they don't go that route. I just hope they don't, because the first one was a beautiful game. It was a beautiful game. It was one of the greatest games I've ever played in my entire life. Like I said, I mean, I've always been a strong admirer of just Oriental culture as a whole. Chinese, Japanese, and Korean and stuff like that. It's just a beautiful culture. So from a culture standpoint, I know they will deliver, just like the first game did. But yeah, man, just like I said, I mean, Sucker Punch, I'm rooting for him. And like I said, only time will tell. But yeah, guys, man, another one for the archives. 31 cents added. It's your brother Bleak signing off, and until next time, you guys. Us.